Alright, welcome back guys. I am an avid herpetologist and I'm doing a little bit of a different video tonight. During our live stream last night, someone actually came to us with the question, what archetypes or Digimon do we wish had more support in the Digimon TCG? Now in the moment, my immediate answer was Seadramon, and that is going to be a part of this list, but it actually got me thinking, what are some other things I would really like to see coming out of the Digimon TCG? So for this video, I'm going to be doing the top 5 things that I could think of that I think would be really cool to see manifest themselves in the Digimon TCG. Now, some of these are going to be kind of tying together existing cards into an archetype. Others may just be building on archetypes already existing. But these are some things that are not currently in the game that I would think would be really, really cool, or maybe just additional support that I would like to see for certain archetypes personally. As always, if you guys enjoy this list, highly recommend you guys leave down in the comments your top 5 things that you would love to see coming out of the Digimon TCG. We've gotten a lot of really cool stuff in the now 11 sets plus 3 EX sets and all of these promos. We've gotten some really cool cards, but Digimon is a vast franchise, and I know there's plenty of things out there that you guys would still love to see come to fruition in the game. So we're going to go ahead and jump into my personal list. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Apocalymon and the Dark Masters. Now, in the very first Digimon set, we actually saw all 4 of the base Dark Masters, Metal Seadramon, Machinedramon, Piedmon, and Puppetmon, with really cool and, to this day, pretty unique cards. They were all introduced at Mega level with on-play effects, which basically, for those of you who are fans of the original show, these guys did not digivolve up out of anything. They were created at the Mega level. So by creating these cards with on-play effects, you are encouraged to drop them immediately as Megas rather than digivolve up into them. So it was very flavorful and very cool. Now, with the exception of Piedmon, the other 3 had pretty generic and relatively decent on-play effects. Machinedramon originally, you on-play would de-digivolve 2 on 2 of your opponent's Digimon. Puppetmon was probably the most competitive of the group, coming down, suspending an opponent's Digimon, and then preventing your entire opponent's board from unsuspending for the turn. Metal Seadramon would come down and then bounce, return to hand 2 of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, and Piedmon would revive some purple Digimon from your trash. So Piedmon was unfortunately a little bit tied to the purple color, but the other 3 at least saw small amounts of use in a deck style of the time called Megazoo. Now, I've done a little bit of gameplay in the last night's live stream with the Jagomon Megazoo deck. I did a whole deck profile on it. Basically, it's a deck built around playing Mega Bodies for cost that have big, impactful effects on the board. Now, the only member of the original Digimon TV series villains that, as far as I'm aware, has not been made into an official card, because we've had Devimon, we've had Etamon, Myotismon, Venom Myotismon. We have not yet seen Apocalymon. Now, Apocalymon, I believe, is supposed to be a DNA Digivolution of all 4 of the Dark Masters. Needless to say, in the Digimon TCG, not likely that we're going to be able to have something quite to that extent. I think it's asking a little much to Jogras with all 4 of these. Now, we also now have the Digicross mechanic, so maybe there could be something with putting cards with unique names and Dark Master underneath Apocalymon on play to make it cost less. That could kind of inspire a really neat Megazoo style deck. Now, I do think the Dark Masters could probably each use a new updated retrain if that was the direction we were going to go. I recognize, of course, that Machinedramon has been revamped a couple of times at this point, but the other 3 definitely have not. And even still, if this was going to be a deck built around Aquaticon, Machinedramon also could probably use specifically Dark Master revamp. Now, if we were to give erratas to the original BT2 Dark Master cards, they are considered Dark Masters, and Apocalymon could then use them, then I think that is completely usable, or maybe just Apocalymon could just name these 4 for a Digicross effect. I don't know, something to that extent, but I think it would be really cool to see a Megazoo style deck come back into the spotlight that is actually requires you to build around these. Now, this is unfortunately a little similar in play, in theory at least, to how like the new 4 Great Dragons archetype is going to play out. I think you could definitely do some changes in here and make it kind of its own unique thing. This is just one thing that, as one of the big final boss of the original Digimon TV series, I'd really like to see Apocalymon come into the Digimon card game in a big way. And I think a Digicross Megazoo kind of style deck build is like the perfect way to go about that. So that's going to be my number 5. Coming in at number 4 is actually Tyrannomon X-Antibody. And yes, this is something that exists. So I have been a huge fan of the Tyrannomon archetype even since I was a kid. I love dinosaurs. Go figure, I'm a big fan of the Tyrannomons. Even in the original, again, back to the first couple of Digimon sets, there was, in the early days, a deck called Tyrannomon Rush that was basically just champion and ultimate level aggression. It was kind of like Rookie Rush, but had a little more setup involved. Loved that deck back then, and Tyrannomon has been kind of slowly acquiring new pieces as new sets have come out. We've gotten EX1 Tyrannomon that lets you play a Taiga from your hand. We've then got Master Tyrannomon, and I believe in BT 8 or 9, which then gave your Tyrannomon security attacks. And now coming in BT 11, we've got even more, where we've got a second copy of Taiga, new Tyrannomon, new Metal Tyrannomon, and finally a new Rust Tyrannomon. Now, if we're going to keep pushing this archetype, which I would love to see happen, it's going to be Rogue, but I still would love to see it get more support. I want to see the X-Antibody Tyrannomon line. Now, look at the 3 dudes on the screen here. Look how cool these card designs are. The Tyrannomon X-Antibody line is so much more feral. I think the original Tyrannomon set can almost be kind of cuddly at times, which Tyrannosaurus Rexes. I mean, it's got to be a little more intimidating. And the X-Antibody Tyrannomon line definitely delivers on that. These Digimon look absolutely awesome, and I would love to see them adapted into the card game. Now, how would the X-Antibody mechanic necessarily work? I don't really have a good answer for that. The Tyrannomon archetype as it stands usually rotates around having Taiga, or the new sport specifically level different green tamers. It still does heavily focus on having champion level aggression. So something similar to almost like, I guess, how the Leomon X-Antibody would be kind of cool, where you can play them out of sources in some way. Maybe when they delete something in battle, you can play a Tyrannomon from the sources. That'd be kind of cool, since piercing over enemy Digimon is generally the theme for the archetype. I don't know. I don't really know exactly how I personally would design the X-Antibody line for the card game, but I'd really like to see them be brought in. I think they're very cool design-wise. I think the archetype is very clearly still getting support. So who knows? Fingers crossed, maybe we will get these guys down the line, but that's going to be number 4 on my personal wish list. Coming in at number 3 is Fanglongmon, or I think Huanglongmon if you're going with the Japanese name, and in English it's usually Fanglongmon. For those of you unaware, Fanglongmon is the, again, Jawgrass Digivolution of all 4 of the Digimon Sovereigns, which you can also see we have Azulongmon, Baihumon, Zuquamon, it's my best guess at pronunciation, and Abanwomon. Now, this is going to be even more challenging. Of all the ones we've talked about so far, I have no clue how to properly bring in Fanglongmon, other than just, I guess, making it a generic level 7 that can digivolve from any color, and maybe get a discount if it digivolves from one of the 4 sovereigns. That would be one of my best ideas, I think, for how to introduce it. I'm not really sure how to introduce the effects or things like that. Fanglongmon is an incredibly powerful Digimon from the lore, so I'd really love to see him adapted. We now, as of BT9, with Baihumon, have all 4 of the Digimon Sovereigns existent in the game, but up until this point, there hasn't been a lot of motivation to specifically play those Sovereigns. Each one of them is very strong in their own ways. Some are stronger than others. Azulongmon technically has seen actually some competitive play, which is kind of cool, the original one. But I'd really like to see another reason to kind of push those Sovereigns into play. Again, these are Digimon that are supposed to be very powerful in the lore, kind of up there as like the protectors of the digital world and all of that. So seeing their next stage would be really, really cool. Fanglongmon being this big golden dragon, I think you could make a really cool card out of that. So I'm excited to see if that comes into the game at some point. I'm actually pretty confident that at some point they are going to introduce Fanglongmon. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a secret rare at least, or at least a super rare in the next couple of sets, but who knows? We'll see. I was actually kind of banking on them bringing Fanglongmon into the Dramon set, just because it is dragon-themed. I thought it would have been the perfect time to have introduced Fanglongmon into the TCG, but didn't happen. That's okay. Maybe we'll see Fanglongmon down the line, but for now, he is number 3. I'm really hoping we will see him at some point. Number 2 is very self-indulgent, and most people watching probably won't be surprised by my number 2. I'm looking for more Machinedramon support. Now, specifically, I recognize, of course, Machinedramon has been getting a lot of support recently. They just got a tamer. It might not have been a phenomenal tamer, in my personal opinion, Analog Man, but it did get a tamer. We keep getting new Megas, and every set keeps adding new level 5 Cyborgs. That's not what I'm interested in. Me personally, one of the things that I'm starting to notice, I find myself wanting more and more. I would love it if we had an egg, at least one more rookie, and at least one more champion that specifically support the Machinedramon archetype, or at least the Cyborg Machine archetype. We don't really have a lot of that yet. We definitely don't have an egg. The best black egg for Machinedramon to be running is going to be somewhere between Pagumon and Hotmon, and neither one of those is super ideal. Pagumon is going to be hitting things that are not black because Machinedramon runs level 5 cyborgs that are just solid red. There's going to be, of course, tamers and option cards we're going to wind up hitting. So Pagumon's not super ideal. Hotmon's not that ideal either. I would really just love it if there was some egg out there that specifically supported having machines or cyborgs, and ideally would be able to draw us more cards, because obviously that's what Machinedramon wants to do, right? One of the big things that excuse me, one of the big reasons that people like to run red-based Machinedramon is the synergy of having Digimon and Geomon, which will draw you 2 cards on attack. If we just had an egg that said if this is a machine or a cyborg, we can even just pinhole it and say just if it was a machine. I'm okay with that. If it was an egg that said if this Digimon has machine in its traits, on attack, draw a card, already I would absolutely love that. I think that would be a huge boost for the deck. Now, and the reason I'm saying specifically machine is I recognize there's going to we have to kind of play around some balancing issues. Machinedramon is obviously not the only machine cyborg archetype out there. D-Brigade is also getting a lot of support going forward, and D-Brigade already is doing plenty well with Agumon as an egg. I'm a little concerned. Now, to be fair, maybe having Cyborg Machine on attack, draw 1 wouldn't necessarily break D-Brigade. It could just be another, again, boost for that deck without actually breaking anything. I don't know. But I would love to see an egg that had that kind of option. Just the ability to draw cards, or at least do some kind of interaction, even if it's just discard Cyborg or Machine and draw a card. Some additional dig power from a black base would really be appreciated for consistency for the deck, as well as helping keep the deck keep pace as the game continues to power up. The same thing I would say for rookies and champions. Now, we have had rookies and champions that support this archetype, but I don't think we've had any meaningful ones since EX1, where we had Hagurumon, which is on play, discard Cyborg or Machine to draw 2, and then, of course, the Gardramon, which has the Inheritable that does, on attacking, do that exact same thing. Discard Cyborg or Machine, draw 2. I would love it if we could just get at least one more rookie and champion, just one more in each of those slots that also supports that playstyle. It doesn't have to be that specifically, obviously. It could be any number of other effects. It could be checking your top and trashing cyborgs, or adding cyborgs to hand if it's on the champion level, so you can Digivolve into them. So in theory, you'd be able to, play Digivolve up into a champion, use the effect. You could check your top 3 and add a level 5 cyborg. That would play well off of the EX1 cyborgs, which then Digivolve and check the top 3, add a level 6 machine. Basically something to just tie the deck together and give you something to do outside of just level 5 stuff. Because there are plenty of really good level 5 effects to Digivolve up into. Currently, other than Gardramon and Haguru on play, there's not a lot to do with the rookie and champion level, and the deck would definitely benefit from seeing those. On the screen, if you don't know, in the middle, that's not Haguru, that is actually Solarmon, which would be a great another alternative. It's also able to Digivolve up into Gardramon and Mechanori, so it would absolutely make sense. I think Solarmon's already got a red card, but again, if we got a black version that specifically supported the Machine Cyborg archetype, I would really love that. Same with Mechanori and Clockmon, where we have copies of these cards, but they don't necessarily have synergies directly with what Machinedramon as an archetype wants to do. So more low-to-the-ground support for the archetype is what I would love to see. I love that we're still getting level 5s and 6 support, tamers and options and things like that. I love that. Super happy about it. I would really love an egg, rookie, and champion. Just one of each, I think, would push that deck so much further ahead. Alright, with my Machinedramon rant out of the way, the number one thing that I'm actually really hoping to see more support for in the future is actually Seadramon. Now this, again, is a little self-indulgent, as Seadramon was also one of my favorite Digimon growing up. The entire line. I loved all of them. Again, avid herpetologist, I love reptiles. I also love marine life. So naturally, marine reptiles are going to be one of my big favorites. I love everything about the Seadramon line. Thus far, the Seadramon line has not done a whole lot in the Digimon TCG. Now, Betamon has got a green version of the card that actually is a searcher, which is kind of cool. Doesn't really support the blue stuff, where the rest of the line is hiding though. Seadramon only has one printing currently, which is just a 3-drop, 2 to Digivolve, 4000 PP vanilla with no effects. So that's kind of lackluster. Mega Seadramon, the original card was not great. And then we got a new Mega Seadramon in EX3, but we didn't get anything else from that line. And I'll be honest, that bothered me a lot. Just because this was supposed to be the Dramon set. And don't get me wrong, we got a Bidramon, which is a giant lobster, but it's a dragon-themed set. It's still a Dramon, but why would you not just go ahead and do the whole Seadramon line? You could have just reskinned Crabmon, Abidramon, and ultimately Plesiomon into Betamon, Seadramon, Mega Seadramon, Metal Seadramon. And would that have just been cosmetic changes? Absolutely. Would I have appreciated it just because it plays better to a theme? Yes, I really would have. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why in just a couple of minutes, because there is actually a lot I would like to say about the Seadramon archetype. But Metal Seadramon has still only had the one printing. That's the original Dark Masters one that I mentioned from the first set. On play, just bounce to level 4 or lowers. There are going to be some people who are looking to play Metal Seadramon in the new Eigastramon deck coming out. And again, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But I really do think it would benefit from getting a retrain. Just something that is better. A lot of these new cards that are coming out are starting to get both on-play and when digivolving effects. I would love to see that for Metal Seadramon. As the Mega level, at the top of the Seadramon food chain, if you will, I think having an on-digivolve and when playing would not only be beneficial for helping Seadramon as an archetype, if that was what ends up being created, but it's also really good for the Eigastramon archetype, where you can do things going up into it while also playing it from sources and getting benefits. And ultimately, I do think that's what I think Seadramon as an archetype, if it was an archetype, would benefit most from, is really leaning into the new theme that Blue is kind of getting more support for, which is playing things out of Digivolution sources. That is a very cool, unique ability that Blue has seen a little bit of, because obviously Kaiser Nail was one of the first Digimon cards released in the original starter decks. But we haven't actually seen that as an archetype sculpted. We've had little bits and pieces over the years. Leopardmon in the first couple of sets. There was a Gomamon that draws you 2 if it's played from sources. But now we're finally getting more support that actually lets you create play from sources as an archetype. And it looks really cool. I'm actually really excited for that deck when it comes out. But if you really want to make Seadramon a strategy and push it over, what better way than giving it the treatment I would love to see for Tyrannomon, and giving them the X-Antibody treatment. Because yes, the X-Antibody Seadramon line does exist. Pictured here we have, of course, Betamon X-Antibody, we have Seadramon X-Antibody, Mega Seadramon X-Antibody, which is getting wild and wacky with the design, just throwing that out. And this last one, for those of you unfamiliar, this is not Metal Seadramon X, this is Giga Seadramon. Giga Seadramon is basically the Gaiomon for Seadramon. So Gaiomon is kind of supposed to be the X-Antibody version of Black War Greymon. Of course, now we have Black War Greymon X, but from a design perspective, Gaiomon was actually supposed to be the X-Antibody of Black War Greymon. Even though they don't share the name, they're supposed to go together, which is why Gaiomon digivolves from Black War Greymon for a cost of 2. So if we were really to lean a Seadramon archetype into playing out of sources, the X-Antibodies would make such good use of this. So being able to go onto some of your other Seadramons, or really any of those other kind of, level 4s, going with X-Antibody, obviously, ideally, it would be a Seadramon going underneath, and then being able to bring the Seadramons out and get beneficial effects. I think this would be so cool. Not only that, but it also gives you the option of stacking additional level 3s and 4s under your stacks. So a lot of the play from sources support is trying to specifically play level 3 Digimon that are blue, or level 4 Digimon that are aquatic or sea animal. So being able to X-Digivolve onto your Betamons and your Seadramons gives you 2 extra bodies, 4 total, that you can then bring out of a single stack. That's really neat. I think that would be really cool. It's an unexplored territory for this kind of playstyle. And then, of course, building all the way up to your Giga Seadramon, again, I think that would be great. Digivolve from Metal Seadramon for a cost of 2, and have on Digivolve and 1 play effects. I think that would be such a neat idea to kind of transition, not only give the Seadramon archetype spotlight, which I think they're deserving of. I mean, there was a kid in the Digimon 02 anime who had Betamon as his partner that digivolved into Seadramon. Seadramon is also almost as old as some of the main characters. If, again, just a little refresher here, the very first episode that we ever saw in the original Digimon anime that featured Garurumon, Gabumon digivolving to Garurumon, the opponent he was up against was Seadramon. Seadramon is fundamentally as old as Garurumon. It's so old. It's a classic Digimon that has not gotten a lot of spotlight yet. Yes, it is a personal favorite for me, but it is still a classic. Think about all the support that the other big classics like Tyrannomon have gotten. I would love to see Seadramon get that same treatment, and this X-Antibody line with maybe some retrains that revolve around playing from sources is a really cool way to kind of transition in the Seadramon line into an actual archetype. Speaking of that archetype, I do want to talk a little bit about something I kind of want to tack on to this personal part of my wish list. So coming in EX3, we are going to be getting this beautiful card right here called Eigistramon. Now, Eigistramon is supposed to be a Drogress of Metal Seadramon and Plesiomon. As I mentioned, in EX3, we received that copy of Plesiomon. I'm still annoyed. It was a Draymon set. Why did you make Plesiomon and not Metal Seadramon? Does it matter? Not really. Are there synergies that I would have appreciated having? Yes. This archetype could have played something like Dracomon at the rookie level if it had Seadramons all the way up. That gives you extra Draymon targets that you can add to hand. Plesiomon doesn't synergize with that. I still like Plesiomon, don't get me wrong, but in a Draymon set, why would you make Plesiomon and not Metal Seadramon? That still bothers me. It's a pet peeve. That's all it is. It's not something that matters in any way. You could literally just reskin this exact same card and call it Metal Seadramon, and I would have been so much happier, but I digress. But one of the reasons that I'm mentioning this archetype, I am very excited for it. You'll notice that I have on here as kind of my little tack on number 1.5. I want to see some erratas that make more cards playable with this archetype. So Eigistramon, Plesiomon, Mega Seadramon, as I mentioned, specifically play with level 3 blue Digimon, or level 4s, or in Eigistramon, level 4s, 5s, and 6s, that are aquatic traits or sea animal traits. Now, we may end up seeing some erratas before the set gets released, or maybe there was a translation issue, but there are quite a few cards that I really wish were included under this particular umbrella. Now, Eigistramon, I'm pretty sure, is generic, where you can drop pretty much anything. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I might be, but I don't remember the exact wording of the effect, but there are a lot of cards that are omitted from being able to be played by these effects. As two great examples, two cards that I think would love to be played in this particular archetype are Seadramon and Zudomon, specifically the BT2 Zudomon. Both of these cards scream that they want to be involved in this archetype. Seadramon is a blocker that you can digivolve into for one. Number one, that lets you drop a rookie out of an inheritable, and then you can digivolve for one on top of it into a blocker. So I already plan on using Seadramon in the deck. I just wish it was considered an aquatic or a sea animal, because then it would be able to be played off of some more of these cards. Zudomon is the same way. Unfortunately, Zudomon is considered a sea beast, not a sea animal, and they have made that distinction on purpose, unfortunately. But this Zudomon is, again, begging to be part of this archetype. It's very classic. Again, this actually saw a lot of play back in the original days of the Digimon TCG as an on-play where it just draws you two cards. It's the exact same effect as Cordramon that comes out of security, and also that Gomamon that draws you two when it's played from inheritables. So having another card that you can drop onto the field and immediately get some value out of would be appreciated. This Zudomon also has a nice inheritable, which is just kind of icing on the cake, where when attacking, if your opponent has a Digimon with no security cards, gain a memory. This card absolutely feels like it should have been part of this archetype, and it just wasn't for some reason. So if you were going to ask me for just kind of one little additional errata, because my number one is collectively, I want to see this play from Digivolution sources. Collectively, I think it's going to be referred to as Eigastramon. I would love to see the Eigastramon archetype get more well-rounded support. This is one of the ways I think they can do it. If they just errata a couple of these cards that fit so well into the archetype and give them either aquatic or sea animal as their traits, adding them in could help give that deck so much more diversity in playstyle, more robust. What's a good word for it? It lets them make more interesting plays. The deck already has plenty of draw power, sure, but being able to drop an ultimate is so much better than being able to drop a champion or a rookie. So, anyways, that's pretty much it as far as my rant goes. Once again, if you guys enjoyed watching this list of things that I am looking forward to or hoping for, I guess, from the Digimon TCG, please leave in the comments below. I want to hear what you guys are looking forward to and what kind of things you want to see come out of the Digimon TCG. I love that we can bond over this game together, guys. It's been so great hearing what you guys have been interested in as far as decks and things like that. Now I want to hear what are your favorite Digimon and what do you want to see get more support. Thank you all once again for joining me. Again, I am an avid herpetologist. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see you next time.